Okay, so we've got our stack of images now that we've batch pre-processed, so we've calibrated and we've registered them. Now we need to integrate them to give us our final working image. And we do that with the image integration tool, and we find that in process, all processes, and image integration, just there. So it opens up this window, um, and again, we're going to leave quite a lot of this alone, but what we do need to do is add our files. So we add files, we go to our folder where we save them all to, so it was in HA900s, batch pre-processed, registered, HA. So we can see by the C and the R, these are the ones we want. Click on the first one, shift, drag down to the bottom, and put all of our files in. Now if you notice there, I also had 1200 HAs. You could also put all of the 1200s in as well, as long as they've been registered to the one registration frame that we use in the batch processing. You could put, and they're all the same as long as they're all HA or luminance or colours. You can put them in, and the more data you put in the image integration tool, the better the noise rejection will be. So, but we've got a nice lot of 900s anyway, so these should look nice. So we're just going to go with the ones that we've been working with all along. So there they all are, and what we're going to do is we're going to leave this first sheet at all the default settings. Pixel rejection 1. In here we want to select our rejection tool or algorithm, so we're going to use, because we've got a nice lot of subs, the best one to use is the Windsorized Sigma clipping. If you haven't got so many, it may just be Sigma clipping, but this is a very quick tool for trial and error, so you can try the different ones and go back backwards and forwards. It's very quick to do because the computer remembers the data from each of the images, so it makes it faster. So we've got, and we're going to leave everything else at default. The rejection limits that we're looking at are the sigma low, sigma high, and we're going to leave them at default as well for the minute. And I'll show you what happens when we change that. To reject less pixels, you increase the slider. To reject more, you decrease. A lot of the tools in Pixinsight are there's intuitively the opposite. So to do less, you increase. There's a few tools the same. Pixel rejection 3 won't be relevant for us. It's grayed out because it's one of the other algorithms. And that's it. That's all we're going to do. All we need, the other tools we need to know in there is we've got the a lot of the tools have this little open cornered like a piece of paper, it looks like. Well, in that is the documentation for the tool. So if you want to swat up on the tools and they've got one of these little icons, that's where you find the information. And if you hover over any of the tools, it will also, it will give you the information what's in the tools. So you've got some preferences, but we don't need to touch any of this. Reset button, only you're going to use the reset button if you're going to use the same tool for doing a different set of data. Again, we've got the icon. We can drag this and keep the process if we want, and we can also hit the global apply to set the tool in motion. And you can see it's very fast. It whizzes through the images very quickly because it's already got all of the information stored. So this shouldn't take too long at all. It's another one you can't do much on the screen while it's working because it's a very labor intensive tool. So yeah, so this circle, even though this is an i7 computer, it still drags it down, but it's done it pretty quick. So these are what we've been left with. We've been left with the high rejection, a low rejection, and our integration. So this is our final 900 seconds HA image. Let's just show you a few of the little things on the screen here, just so we can just keep introducing a few more tools as we go, bits and pieces. The images. So there's a few things you can do with this screen. We can minimize the screen, and we can move these icons around to neaten the screen up. So if you've got lots of these open, lots of tools open, you can get these out of your way. We can to organize them, if we just go cascade windows, it puts them back in order for us. We can minimize them in a way that you can't change them. So if the first minimize tool here, iconize, that's minimize the window, but it's not active. When we minimize this one, it's still active. We can still do stuff with this. As we can see, it opens it back up and puts it back on the screen. But if we minimize them as an icon, we can move these around and leave them. It won't get touched. So it's a good idea if you're doing an RGB or HAS203, is to, when you've got your 3 color images and you've done your batch processing, your image integration, it's a good idea, once you're not using the masters anymore, to iconize them, put them in the corner of the screen out of the way, so you don't accidentally delete them or use them for something you shouldn't be. And to reactivate, it's just double click. Also, in its iconized state, you'll notice there's a little N. That little N we can rename, so we can change this from integration to whatever you want, HA. So that can be done, but we're not going to bother. Also, we can change the identifiers on the side of the screens here by, same again, HA, and which is a good idea if you've got, again, LRGB. You only want LRGB rather than the big long identification labels. What else can we do? We can stretch the screens. We can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. You can zoom to fit. We can, we've just done that. If I open that up, that will fit the view again. It will move it around. It will compress it to its best fit. That's about it for a minute. There's other things we can do, but we'll come into that in a little while. Okay, so back to our 3 images. So let's see what we've rejected. Our high rejection filters. Now we can't actually see much of the screen because these are not these are non-linear images. So these images have not been stretched. We'll forget the linear and non-linear. It just makes things confusing for people. We'll just say it's unstretched. In its unstretched state, we're not actually doing anything with the data. We're not changing the data. It's all going to be there exactly the same. Until it's been stretched, the data is untouched. Now, when we're just in our unstretched state, we use a tool called the STF function, so screen transfer function, which allows us to stretch the images so we can visualize the image, but we can't actually change the data. And to do that, again, process, all processes, screen transfer function, and this little tool pops up. Again, we're going to leave most of this at default. We're not going to touch the sliders because we're only working in mono. But even in color, I'm going to show you that we're not going to be touching that either for a minute, because that can get very confusing. On this tool, at this moment in time, all we're going to be using is the atomic. So it's just an auto stretch. And the auto stretch shows us all of the rejected pixels. So these are the ones that we've binned, or the algorithm has binned. And we could probably go back and get rid of a few less. There's probably a bit of data in there that's still good, but I think we'll be fine. We're not gonna do that at this one. We'll do it on the next run. So we're gonna go with that one. We don't need it anymore. And then the low rejection. Again, if we stretch it and then zoom in, you'll see there's a few pixels in there that have been rejected. So we're happy with that. We get rid of that. Now this is our image, the one we're going to be using. So if we stretch that one, we can see we've got an upside down horse's head. So what that means is the image that I chose as the registration frame must have been an inverted image. Doesn't matter. We can just turn it around, and we turn it around by going image, geometry, rotate 180. There we are. And if we zoom in, we can see that the rejection has done a really good job. It's super smooth, very, very low noise. So we should be able to get a very nice image from this without too much trouble. That's nice data. So that's it for the image integration tool. Again, we've got the same. We can save the icon. You can save it as many times as you want. So if you change something, go back, save it again. To delete the icons, just right click and delete. Right click, delete. You can rename the icon, so you press the N and then you can call it image integration or whatever you want. And also a real handy one is on the small D at the bottom, you can edit and leave notes. So if you can put a note in there, whatever you want, and commit that. The little D turns red to let you know there's a note in there. So when we're doing our process, we'll do this, and we'll do this a lot more. You end up with a stack of icons down here of all the different processes, and we'll keep them in order so you can see, and then we can save projects and go on. And we'll make notes, and it's very handy when you're going to save a project and go back to open the note, see what you did, and you can also just edit that note again. Very handy. So for now, also one more thing to remember: once you're happy, you've done your integration, you don't need this tool anymore, but you might want to keep the tool on the screen so you can make your workflow, or you can see your workflow. So what we'll do, you can save the icon, clear the data from the screen, so that removes it from the working computer, and then you can minimize, and then you can keep your stack of icons, so you know where you are and what order you was working in. And when we come back next time, we will start working on the image, and we're going through a few more of the icons on the left side, a bit more about the History Explorer, and we'll start making this into a lovely image. So, one more thing, good time to save this image, because now we're going to start stretching. So it's a good save point. And so what you would do is go File, Save As, and then we'll keep it in. We're doing our where was we? Desktop, horsehead nebula, and probably a good idea is just to do a new folder, and we'll put integration. So we know that that's where HA, we don't want to save it as a JPEG, we want to save it as an XISF. So all of the work in Pixinsight is done in XISF files, so we want to save it as a HAXISF. Save. Okay, and that's saved. Now we can quite happily delete that. What we didn't want to do is delete that and lose the process we was up to. And that's it. I'll speak to you soon.